Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. And this is my interpretation of what it looks like to have Ketu in your first house, Rahu in your seventh house. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. So before we get into this, we first have to understand who are these entities of Rahu and Ketu. So this is coming from the story of the churning of the ocean of milk. There was a great battle between the Devatas and the Asuryas, and there were many casualties on each side. And so the Devatas were seeking a solution to this problem. And the solution was to churn this ocean of milk. But in order to do this, they needed the help of the Asuryas. And so the plan was to take the elixir from this ocean of milk. This was only to be for the Devatas and not the Asuryas, in order to give the Devatas an advantage over the Asuryas. However, after the elixir came out of this ocean, the Asuryas took the elixir and ran off. So in order to help the Devatas, Lord Vishnu disguised himself as a beautiful woman named Mohini. And Lord Vishnu secretly was giving this elixir to the Devatas behind his back. And most of the Asuryas fell for this illusion, except for one Asurya named Swarabhanu. And Swarabhanu is the entity that we now know as Rahu and Ketu. Swarabhanu disguised himself as one of the Devatas to get a sip of this elixir. And he was able to do this, but only before the sun and the moon realized that he was an impostor and exposed him. And so afterwards, Vishnu beheaded this entity, and because he had drank the elixir, his body became immortal, liberated, as all bodies are when beheaded by Vishnu. But his head was forever trapped in this mortal reincarnation cycle. And so Rahu is that head. Rahu represents this material incarnation. Rahu is the entity that brings us into this material world. Rahu is all about our desires, all about our ambitions, everything that we are moving towards. And so Rahu is the karmic lesson that is keeping us here in this material world. Well, Ketu is the liberated body of this serpent that is taking us out of this world. And so Ketu is the key to liberation, to our spiritual progress. But Ketu is a little bit detached from this reality. Ketu is holding the knowledge of our past lives, of the root, of the source of where we are coming from. And so Ketu gives us access to knowledge and abilities that we have already experienced before. And this can come in the form of deja vu, of intuition, of just having natural talents in areas that you have not practiced or gained any kind of experience before. But Ketu being a bit detached also creates a disillusionment, where we are disconnecting from the physical and getting lost. And so both of these are creating conflicts within our lives, where Rahu is creating over-attachment, obsession, but Ketu is creating a problem of becoming dissociated and detached. And so what we have to do where Rahu and Ketu are placed in our chart is to find a balance between these two karmic positions. It is important that we are moving towards Rahu, fulfilling that karma that we did not resolve in a past life. But also, we have to be careful of not getting too obsessed and attached into the illusion of this material desire. So what does it mean then to have Ketu in your first house and Rahu in your seventh house? Well, this has a very significant impact on your personality, very similar to what we talked about in our video about Rahu in the first house, Ketu in the seventh house. This first and seventh house axis is very significant. This has a lot to do with your life path, your life direction, the direction that you are moving into. And it also has a lot to do with your appearance and personality. So when Ketu comes into a prominent house like this is going to have a huge karmic impact on you as an individual and the way that you show up in the world. Because Ketu is very detached, very destabilized in this physical incarnation. And so as Ketu comes into this first house, this is going to make you someone who is a bit detached, a bit aloof. You are a bit withdrawn into your own world. You're very aware of who you are and what your talents are, what your knowledge is. You have a strong sense of independence and individuality. And this can make you someone who is very self-sufficient, very confident, very sure of yourself. You're a very capable person. However, there is a conflict happening because Rahu being in your seventh house is the area where you have not gained that experience in that past life. There is an unresolved karma that is there in this seventh house of your chart, which makes you someone who is very disconnected from relating with other people. And so this can cause you some difficulties in your life, particularly when you are going through your Ketu Dasha period or your Rahu Dasha, or when you reach the age of maturity in your 40s. So this is going to cause some issues because you are very independent. You are good on your own. You don't really feel a need to interact with others or to move out into the world. Now this is an excellent placement because this helps with your spiritual progress. And it is said that when Ketu is in the first house, that your soul has traveled a long way to come into this incarnation cycle. So there is some heavy pending karma that you have carried with you into this life that has to do with your past life. And for a lot of you, this is showing up as a feeling of deja vu, or a feeling of being guided and led in a direction without understanding this physically. This is an intuitive feeling that you are being drawn towards some destiny. And so this helps a lot with your ability to go inward, to meditate, to go into deeper contemplation, to move towards spirituality. And you have to see, of course, what is all going on in your chart. But for many of you, this Ketu placement is really turning you inward into this spiritual journey. Ketu in the first house can make you someone who loves to get into deep research, who loves to get into mystical subjects, into complex subjects, into really wanting to understand everything to the depths. You have a very penetrating mind where you are all about exploring everything and understanding what it all means. And so this makes you a very philosophical person. In a lot of ways, with Ketu in this first house, if it is well placed, this makes you someone who is extraordinary in terms of your intelligence and your capabilities. This is profound, the wisdom, the intelligence, the knowledge that you can have with Ketu in this first house. You have a deep understanding of things that is foreign to other people. So many people may look at you as if you are strange for some of the knowledge and wisdom that you possess. Sometimes you also can come across as a bit of a know-it-all to other people, a bit preachy, a bit self-absorbed in your views because you have very strong conviction. When you have decided on a belief, when you have decided on a decision, on something that is personal to you, you stick with it. You're not as easy for other people to change your views. But also, you are very wise, very profound, very well researched. So you are able to teach others, able to inspire others, to give wisdom to others. And you will find that in your life, many people will be attracted to you for this knowledge that you possess. 𝐏𝐡𝐸 in the first house can also create strange situations around your birth, especially the closer it is to your ascendant or Lagna, because that is the point from which you took birth. So if 𝐏𝐡𝐸 is very close with your ascendant, this is going to affect you even more intensely. But in general, with 𝐏𝐡𝐸 being in this first house, this can show strange situations around your birth and your early upbringing. You could have been adopted, you could have been a foster child, you could have lost a parent early on, you could have been alone a lot in the earlier part of your life, you could have had a strange illness, you could have been moved to a foreign place, all of these strange factors that are related to 𝐏𝐡𝐸 in the first house. And so all of these sort of situations can make you feel different from other people. And not only this, but the knowledge that you have, the insight that you have, can make you feel different from other people as well. So you may have grown up, especially in your early childhood, feeling misunderstood, feeling different, feeling as if you don't fit in with others. And you can develop a feeling of wanting to be alone a lot, of wanting to be in your own space. Again, you're someone who is very independent, very self-sufficient, very confident within yourself. Sometimes other people are not clearly seeing your personality because you have a discomfort around being in relationships or being with other people. So others may see you as someone who is sad, depressed, lonely, someone who is very shy, standoffish, but you have a strong sense of self-worth within yourself. And especially if you're going through a 𝐏𝐡𝐸 dasha early on in your life, you are going to feel this strongly. This strong sense of confidence, of conviction, of individuality. And other people are aware of this whether you know this or not. People see that you are someone who is independent and self-sufficient. With 𝐏𝐡𝐸 in the first house, you also can be someone who is very adventurous. You love to travel, you love to experience things, because 𝐏𝐡𝐸 is all about movement. 𝐏𝐡𝐸 is actually a very restless planet. It is akin to Mars, so it does have a fiery energy to it. And so you are someone who has a lot of energy, who has a lot of ambition, who is very adventurous. You love to explore. You love excitement in your life. And so although you are very independent and all about staying to yourself, you also don't have a boring or stale life. You are someone who is very exciting, very adventurous. You can even be very bold and daring with this position for some of you, depending upon how your chart is set up. You can just be very outspoken, very strong in your conviction, very bold in your actions. You can shock other people. With 𝐏𝐡𝐸 in this first house, this is going to shroud your personality in mystery. So to others, you can come off as very elusive, very mystical, as if there is something about you that is otherworldly. Other people can see you as someone who is very knowledgeable, but don't understand quite how you are able to access this insight, this knowledge, this understanding that you have. So you can be mesmerizing to other people, and this actually makes you very attractive, which we'll talk more about when we get into Rahu in your 7th house. 𝐏𝐡𝐸 in the first house. This makes you very restless. And at times you can find that you become destabilized, especially again in that area of dealing with other people. But you can find that you are very much distracted easily by things, which is why you find this need to go into quiet, into alone time. This helps you focus on your goals. It helps you focus on your studies, your research, all of the things that you want to put your energy into. So there is a need to focus, with Ketu in the first house. And this is especially true if you have this in a dual sign. This is going to scatter your focus. Ketu in this first house is going to make you someone who is very much about doing your own thing. You're very much interested in your own subjects, in your own interests, making your own decisions, and you can do things in a very unique way that other people are unable to see. You may come up with ideas and ways of moving ahead in life, and to other people, they didn't even think of this. This wasn't even something that they perceived as a possibility. You have a very deep imagination. You can get lost in things, and you love to, again, get into those spiritual subjects, to find yourself in a situation with a belief that is greater than yourself. With Ketu in the first house, though, you want to be careful when going on your spiritual journey, because you are very open to the astral plane, which can give you strong intuition, strong abilities to access other realms, other dimensions, spiritual powers. But this also leaves you open and defenseless on the astral plane. So some of you need to ground yourself. You need to protect your energy from certain astral influences. Ketu in the first house also can destabilize your identity. With Ketu in the first, it wants to detach you from your identity because it is trying to take you towards liberation, spiritual advancement. And so it is trying to get you to let go. But this can cause problems with trying to figure out who are you. And again, we're going to talk more about this when we get into Rahu in the 7th house. Now, this also has special aspects. Ketu is going to aspect over to your 5th house and your 9th house. But these aspects will be strongest during your Ketu Mahadasha. With Ketu's aspect over to the 5th house, this can mean that you have issues around children. So for some of you, you can have some issues with childbirth. You may have difficulties having children, or you may simply not even want to be bothered with children at all. You can find that it is difficult to deal with other people, so you don't want that burden of having to deal with children. Also, Ketu aspecting over to this 5th house can mean that you are a little detached when it comes to relationships. And again, we'll talk more about this with Rahu in the 7th house, but there's almost a discomfort or an ability to find what it is that you're looking for as far as dating and romance. This area can be a bit foggy and elusive. With Ketu aspecting over to this 5th house, again, you are someone who is highly intelligent. You have profound wisdom. And this aspect can help you to tap into mantras, into spiritual practices. It can help you with your education as well. Some of you are very studious with Ketu in the 1st house. Again, depending upon what sign it is in, and all of the conditions in your chart, how it's being aspected by planets, if it's in conjunction with planets, all of this comes into factor. But ultimately, with Ketu aspecting this 5th house, you are extremely intelligent. As Ketu aspects over to your 9th house, again, going back to what I said earlier, you are very adventurous. You love to travel, to explore, to learn, to get into philosophy. Also, this can give you some issues related to your father. So for some of you, you're actually more connected with your mother's family line. In some way, you have a karmic attachment with your mother. And this can cause issues with the father, where you are not necessarily on the same wavelength. Or for some of you, you could even have no father figure present in your life. This also could give you difficulties around finding a guru, finding a mentor who can help you along your journey. For many of you, again, you have this strong sense of independence, of self-reliance. So you want to take your own spiritual path to find your own sense of philosophy and direction in life. And once again, Ketu's aspect over to this ninth house gives you strong conviction. The ninth house is all about taking the right path in life. And this Ketu aspect gives you strong beliefs about what is right and what is wrong. You stand by your beliefs, your truth. You are not about other people's truths. So let's talk about Rahu in your seventh house. Rahu in the seventh house is going to make you someone who is very attractive. People don't know what exactly it is about you, but they want to be around you. They want to connect with you. You have a magnetism about you. So this is going to draw people towards you. And again, this can be a place of discomfort for you where you are all about your alone time. You don't really want to be bothered with. You want to do your own thing. But Rahu definitely is going to open up this house for you because you have some past karmas that need to be completed around relationships. For some of you, you weren't even involved in a relationship or didn't put enough effort into a relationship in a previous lifetime. And so this is really pulling you into this area. And this can be challenging for you because you can find that you never really find a partner who is right for you. Sometimes there is a tendency to keep getting into one relationship after the other. In rare situations, this can also create a promiscuity of getting into relationships at the same time. But that's rare. I've never seen that before in looking at a chart. But ultimately, Rahu in the seventh house can get you into difficult relationship situations where you're not really clicking with these people or you feel that you're being taken advantage of. And with Rahu in this seventh house, you're very paranoid about being taken advantage of, about being manipulated by other people. So you have a lack of trust when it comes to others. You don't really trust other people coming into your life. You prefer to be on your own. And so this is causing a conflict because getting into relationships, you are not always yourself. When you're around other people, you are not always being yourself. You are more yourself when you are alone. And so what can tend to happen is that you can adapt to your partner. You can adapt to your partner's needs. You can become more like your partner when you're in a relationship. And this can create a destabilizing effect where you are losing your identity. You're losing who you are as an individual. So this shows that you really need to take that time to yourself to figure out who are you really. And for many of you, this is something that will come to you again in your 40s when these energies of Rahu and Ketu fully mature. Rahu in this seventh house can attract to you people who are causing problems, people who are not good for you in relationships. And so you do have to use discernment. However, it is important to not be so closed off and untrusting in others that you are unable to connect. This is the biggest problem with this placement, is this inability to relate with other people. In many cases, Rahu, because Rahu represents everything that is out of our comfort zone, out of the ordinary, very unconventional planet. So Rahu in the seventh house can mean that you are getting into relationships with foreigners, that you are having long distance relationships, that you're meeting foreigners when you're going traveling, that you're meeting people who are outside of your culture, outside of your ethnicity. This is something that is very strong with Rahu in this seventh house. So you may find that there are extreme differences with the person that you end up with. But this is actually good for you because this Rahu in the seventh house shows a lack of experience around diplomacy, around compromise. And sometimes you are just adapting to other people around you, but you need to set stronger boundaries. You need to let people know what you are willing to accept and what you are not. And you need to be able to do this in a fair way, in a way that is not hurting other people, but making yourself clear and known to other people. And so this is a theme that will come up in relationships for you, is this ability to compromise, to negotiate, to talk things out, to make your needs clear to your partner. Sometimes you can feel like your partner isn't putting enough attention into you, that you are putting all of your energy and effort into your partner. And you can definitely be someone who is very caring, especially to the people who are closest to you. The people who you feel most comfortable with, you are very generous, very caring, very helpful, supportive. But sometimes people don't perceive this caring quality about you because you are closing yourself off. You're having an inability to trust other people. And so there is a need to put everything out on the table when it comes to relationships, to make it clear what you need and to understand what your partner needs. This is very important. This placement can make you someone who is very skilled when it comes to business and career also. And you may not be aware of this, again, because 𝐏𝐡𝐸 is drawing you back into this first house. You have a lot of skills and talents that are actually related to relationships and business if you are willing to put the effort into these areas. And this is why people come to you for your advice, for your wisdom. You are really good at guiding other people. You're really good at getting deep insight into other people and their lives and giving them the guidance that they need. Now, Rahu is going to aspect your 3rd and 11th house. So, especially when you're going through a Rahu Mahadasha, these two areas will be highlighted for you. This can also play out in your antidarshas as well, but this will be strongest when you are going through a Rahu Mahadasha. So when you go through a Rahu Mahadasha, what can happen is that your relationship with your siblings can become more active. So Rahu is aspecting over to the 3rd house of younger siblings along with the 11th house of older siblings. So if you have siblings, if you have cousins, if you have close relatives, this opens up to you where these connections become stronger. Also, as Rahu is aspecting over to the 3rd house, this opens up your skills. You are able to move in the direction that you want. So this helps you to improve. Remember that that 3rd house is an upachaya house. It is all about growing with time. So you're starting to level up in your life when Rahu aspects this 3rd house. This gives you the courage to take the initiative to go for what you want. And this helps you to gain knowledge, to gain skills, all the things that you need in order to move in this direction. So confidence starts to improve when you enter into this Rahu Mahadasha. Now also, Rahu is aspecting over to your 11th house of wealth, of gains, of opportunities, of social networks. So you will find that people are more drawn to you during this Rahu Mahadasha. This will bring in all sorts of opportunities, all sorts of people who can help you, once again, to level up, to move forward in your career pursuits, in your achievements. You can gain a lot of achievements in your Rahu Mahadasha. The difficulty here is when you are lacking trust, this can close you off to these opportunities. This can close you off to all of these people coming in, all of these opportunities that are coming through your network circles that you have to grab onto. And so the biggest thing that is happening during this Rahu Mahadasha is a need to open up more, a need to move in this direction towards connections, towards relating to other people. Rahu in the 7th house, also during a Rahu Mahadasha, because it is attracting so many people into your life, you can find that you're getting into a lot of relationships during this Rahu Mahadasha, especially if you have this Dasha period happening earlier in your life when you are younger, this is definitely going to bring you a lot of opportunities as far as relationships, but it can also give you a lot of disappointments where you are getting into relationships but they're not working and you're moving on to different relationships and you're finding that you're continuously running into obstacles in this area. So because of this can give you a low sense of confidence. This can make you very dissatisfied where you don't even want to put any effort into relationships at all. So this is a time of realizing that this will have you try this over and over again because Rahu wants to give you the experience of this. And so this may be difficult for you to find the person that you're looking for during this Rahu Mahadasha. But ultimately, Rahu wants to fulfill this desire. And so this becomes all about using discernment, having proper boundaries, and being open, making your needs known, being able to connect, to get out there, and to reach out to other people. During this Rahu Mahadasha, you may also be very competitive, very argumentative, getting into it with all sorts of conflicts and rivalries. Because again, Rahu is going to help you to reach new heights in your goals and ambitions. So other people may be jealous of you at this time. Other people may disagree with your path, your direction. You're a very unique person with 𝐏𝐡𝐸 in the first. You have your own way of doing things that is different. And you're not trying to prove anything to anyone. And so because of this, this can cause all sorts of conflicts when it comes to your career. Remember that that 7th house is also having to do with business. And so ultimately, with all of this together, this is showing that you are a very attractive, very confident, knowledgeable person who other people are looking to connect to, but there is a difficulty in this area. So this has everything to do with working on your ability to relate and connect with others and allowing yourself the space and time to be alone when you need it. Finding that balance between these two positions.